Hey, Nerd Herd, Dynasty Nerds back talking Dynasty Fantasy Football. In this episode, we are going to be talking about tearing down. Tearing down from one tier of player to tier two of players and the abundance of plethora of gold you get with that player. Now, what do you think about tearing down?
I don't know what you're talking about, man. We're going to talk bargain basement alternatives on this episode. It's going to be great. Can't wait to get into it.
So the name brand player versus the off-brand player. We're going to discuss where the value is between the name brand and the off-brand. It'll be great.
I'm literally tearing down.
Ready, set, hut, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
He's Garret Price.
How's it going?
It's going good. We're here talking Dynasty Fantasy Football. The NFL season is officially over. So we are moving on to no football for a while. But we have a lot of good stuff coming up here.
We do.
So we have NFL free agents. Well, the Combine first.
When is the Combine?
2 weeks.
I think so.
Okay.
2 weeks. And
The invites just went out today.
Just saw the invite list come
Yeah.
out. That's why I couldn't remember when it was actually happening.
And then right at the Combine is when we start our rookie breakdown. So we're only a couple weeks away from our rookie breakdowns. We'll cover that for a couple months.
For a minute.
And then we have NFL free agency. So we'll do an NFL free agency show. There's some guys I like out there. I think there's some good value, some young guys. And then, then when rookies are all said and done, we have the NFL draft. Then we get to talk a little bit about that. And then we have the summertime, which is like the break time in Dynasty Fantasy Football.
It's true.
Summertime. Living's easy.
Yes, sir.
Easy peasy.
So it's fun. We got a lot of work to do. As we know, Dynasty Fantasy Football never sleeps.
Nope.
So here we are. We got 365 days to talk about it. There's always an active calendar. There's always things to do. MFL rolled over today. I rolled over all my MFL leagues I was commissioner of. That was fun.
I was trying to do research for the show, and it was like the site is temporarily down. I was like, cool, I'll just go somewhere else.
I saw that this morning. I was like, I want to go send some trades out, and every time I go bring it back up, it's like, oh, site is down. I'm like, what is going on around
They were doing
here?
the maintenance. They were switching over.
Oh, but I love the rollover because then now instead of says 24 first, it says pick 1-6.
There you go.
I only have like 2 picks in all my NFL leagues. It's pretty rough.
I only have like 2 MFL leagues. So.
Not allowed 25. I'm 50-50 right now in leagues, which is crazy. I mean, I counted up yesterday because we're doing this new league, the 10-year anniversary league, which, again, if you want this league, nobody tweet at me this one answer that I'm looking for that gives you guarantee in the league. I'm just looking for the first player that we gave a nickname to, the very first show, but it ran a while. It was a running back. So we were doing to get in the league.
I feel like I even know, and I wasn't here for it.
Yeah, so we were doing, I said, if you want to get in the league with us, a lot of people tweet me. Like, I was like, tweet at me, like, some show sayings or jokes that we've had over the last 10 years. And I got a lot of good ones. One was really good in depth. He's already in the league, like, guaranteed.
Nice.
But I was like, if one person says this name, they're guaranteed in the league. Nobody said it yet. So
Interesting.
yeah, if you tweet at that, you'll get in the league. Or if you want to be in the league, tweet why you think you should be in the league. Maybe you've only been listening for 2 years, but you feel like you deserve to be in the league. Tweet at me. We'll see if we get you in. It's going to be a super flex.
Good luck. Now you're about to have a flood.
Yeah. I know. Everybody's going to send it now.
I deserve it.
Well, nobody sent it last week, so we see. I got a lot of answers, all great. Made me feel really good, but this is not that one guy I was looking for. So
All right.
And there'll be no hints.
yeah, it's gonna be my 25th Dynasty League I'm in. It's a lot. Thank God I have the Dynasty GM.
Your Dynasty GM must just you're scrolling and scrolling and you can see all your teams.
It's really, I know it sounds.
It looks like a terms of service kind of thing.
No, see, like it sounds like a lot, but when you get into the GM, it's not.
No, the GM does a great job.
It's really not that bad. And like it tells them, okay, this team's in trouble, this team's not. So like the whole reason we built the GM was for this.
You can quickly see which teams are in the green, which teams are in the yellow, which teams are in the red.
You're ranked 11 out of 12. Like, whoa,
No, I'm not.
I was like, I was just in the championship game, son.
Must be not in contender mode. Let me look. Oh yeah, it's 2 on contender mode. We're good.
I'm in talks right now in my high stakes league, the league where I went undefeated all the way to the championship game. Like my team's not old, but like players are 27, 20, so in their prime. I was talking to somebody who has like a lot of early draft picks. It's not super flex. It's just one QB. So those picks are a little bit less valuable. But they have pick 2, pick 3, and everything. And they were talking like some kind of trade. And I was like, listen, man, if I'm going to trade, that means I'm just blowing this up. What if I just gave you all the players that maybe go undefeated, and you just give me all the picks you have. And like this
Basically
player
switch teams.
and this player. Like I was offering like Mark Andrews, Debo, Tyreek, and Saquon. And I was like, just give me pick 2, pick 3, my 25 first next year because it'll be my first, and like Kyle Pitts. You know, like along those lines.
Just blow it all up.
He's like, that's interesting. I was like, I don't know. Like either I blow it up or I don't.
Right. You don't want to be in the middle.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I had to ask for another player or 2 on top. I don't know which one it was, but it's like, oh, that might be fun. Just kind of blow this up. Or I was like, either way, I've already made my like enough money in that league where like I've been paid out. Like I didn't win, but I've made enough money where it's like, okay, I'm good on the buy-ins.
Be a little more risky with it.
I'm entering that tier for all my teams because like all my teams, I've traded away future assets. They're all pretty much contenders except for maybe like a handful. And it's kind of like, I got to decide. That's something we'll talk about in the summer too. Like when you decide to blow your teams up, like you know you can go compete for a ship.
Sure.
But by competing for that ship, you're also devaluing your team like tremendously. Like the return you're going to get is pretty low.
The long-term value.
So it's like, where do you value going for the title?
Uh-huh.
Which I always do. Like I always do.
Right.
But going for the title, going down with the ship. Like when you go, like how many, like at what point do you throw in the towel? Like
it can be tough. There are teams where I've given up like probably too early, and then there's other ones where I'm like, they will die on my team.
Yeah.
Like they will die here.
Which I'm totally okay with. Like let my teams just die.
I will keep going until I no longer make the playoffs, and then I'll figure out what to do.
And I'm totally fine with that too. Like I'll just keep taking the money. I'll keep making the playoffs, and hopefully I can get into a good run and win a title, and which is what I want to do in all my leagues. And that's what I was telling the guy. I was like, I've never, when I was talking to the guy and communicating with him, I was like, yeah, I've never had it where like I've had a team that can win, and I just blew it up to just to do it. And I was like, so this will be the first time I did that. That kind of intrigues me a little bit. He's like, that's intriguing me too. Let me think about it. So he's thinking about it. But even me, like, I don't know 100% would do because I feel like my team can go back and compete.
Yeah, right.
For
I mean,
a title.
if you won all those games in a row, you should be able to at least
have a shot at it.
Walk back into the playoffs anyway.
Yeah, I'm not worried about not making the playoffs or even competing. It's just kind of like, okay, you know, Tyreek Hill, Debo, like these guys got a couple years left, and you're kind of like,
I personally like the cycle. You know what I mean? Like I like to cycle through every once in a while and just kind of clean house and do a rebuild because it's fun. It's kind of rejuvenating when you've just been doing the same thing over and over again and trying to stay on top. It's nice. It's fun. You're making money. You're always in the competition, but there's something that just you almost feel like you're, like a volcano erupted, burned everything down, and then it's the little pieces of the flowers poking through all the dirt and everything.
Tulips?
Not tulips, pervert. Flowers. And you just feel like you're born again. You know what I mean? Like you're all renewed on that team. Yeah. And it kind of gives you a nice little burst of energy.
Never done it. All these years, I've never really. Like
you're missing a big.
I've broken a team down, but I've never blown it up from that standpoint. You know what I mean? Like where you're like, you have a lot of good players.
Down from the stud.
And you get a lot of return for all those players. Like you take a team, you're like, man, this team could
do it for fun sometimes, just to see.
I can get 2 firsts for him. I get 2 firsts for him. I get 2 firsts for him. I get 2 firsts for him. And it's like, do I get?
It resets the challenge. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. Like building a team is a challenge. It's a challenge that I enjoy.
Well, the only reason I was willing to do it with him because I know his picks are. I told him I was like, the only reason I'm willing to do this with you is because you have pick 2 and pick 3,
right?
Like, for sure.
That's huge.
Like, and that's my biggest thing is like
2 good young receivers right there.
A lot of teams that buy those players, his team is actually good enough where like if he got these players, he could compete for a title. Like he has those high picks, but his team's good enough where if you add a couple pieces, he can compete. And I'm like, and my biggest problem is usually when you trade those players away, they're good to contenders. It's like I don't want late round picks.
No,
like
they don't do me any good.
They don't. And in 1 QB leagues, even more so. Like pick 8, pick 9.
That's where you gotta get 3 team trades sometimes.
Yeah, those don't mean anything to me. Like I know they're important, but I don't love them.
You've never done a 3-team trade?
I don't think I have.
Oh, they're fun.
I haven't either.
What?
Yeah.
I want to do a trade that has
MFL
like
guys.
Mono. That's
I want to trade with like stipulations like NFL does. Like,
oh yeah,
like,
I've done that too.
Hey, if he scores,
this is a top 3
he's a wide
protected
receiver
pick.
1. Yeah, if he's something along those lines.
Yes.
Like if he's a wide receiver 1, I get this on top. If he's not, I don't. Like,
the hardest part is you have to like the commissioner manually has to track that kind of stuff. That's where it gets tricky. But yeah, I've done some of that. I've actually been involved. I was in a 5-team trade one time. 5. It was nuts.
What? Like how do you manage 5 personalities in a trade?
It was tough. It was my home league.
Yeah.
And so I knew all these people. And we like sat down in a room and we made it happen. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Nobody's getting out of these handcuffs until this trade's complete.
You want to see your kids again?
All right, Garret,
give me Rob
put your
Gronkowski.
pants back on.
Attention Dynasty nerds. Want to play Dynasty like a pro? Check out FFPC, where serious Dynasty leagues have thrived since 2010. You can dive into a world of over 1,500 leagues with stakes ranging from $100 all the way up to an elite $5,000 league. FFPC isn't just a game, it's a community. With unique formats like Triflex and year-round trading, it keeps the fantasy spirit alive all year. Here's my favorite thing about FFPC leagues. They stand the test of time. They've never had a single Dynasty league fold thanks to their orphan season. When you join an FFPC league, you can count on it staying around. They've completely revamped their Dynasty for sale pages now on the web and app, making it easier to scout and snag the perfect Dynasty team. Have you ever dreamed of turning a diamond in the rough into a champion? FFPC Orphans offers that exact thrill. Join the ranks of savvy managers at FFPC. Use our code NERDS for $25 off. Visit myffpc.com. Explore the Dynasty landscape. Find your next challenge. The FFPC, where your Dynasty journey begins. Remember, that's code NERDS for your special discount on your next league.
So, well, today we're talking, speaking of tearing down teams, we're talking we're tearing down players here.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way, right, Garret?
Correct. Yeah, so basically I've kind of labeled this as off-brand players. You can label it however you want.
I put bargain basement.
Bargain basement. There's a lot of different ways to look at this.
I like tear down.
Yeah. Tear down, whatever.
Tear
down.
Don't ask me to pronounce any word correctly.
But basically what we're looking at here is player A is a player that is valued fairly high. Player B is a player that is valued not quite as high as player A, but we feel like will still give you similar production. So there's a few different ways you can go about that. One, you get the extra juice on top without really losing any points. Or B, it facilitates trades in a way where if you make this move, it'll help upgrade you in another position. So that way it'll overall make your team better. So there's a few different ways to look at it, or even in a startup. You know, I'll wait 2 rounds later and draft this guy. So that way in that round, I can draft a different position to help me. So there's a few different, we were talking about ahead of time, talking about all the different scenarios that this makes sense. But please don't hear this, because I know this is going to happen. Somebody's going to tweet at us and say, you like that guy more than this guy. That's not what we're saying. None of us have player B actually above player A today anyway. Now that could change.
That's why we're talking about it, because like we feel like
it's their perceived value of player A is maybe a little overinflated.
If you can get rid of player A and move back and go to player B and then grab a 25 first in a startup and an extra pick in that like same round,
long term, it'll be better for your team.
For your team, you're probably going to win. Because remember, it's a team game in fantasy. Like it's total score, right? Total score wins. So that's fine if you have 3 stud wide receivers who are the first, second, and third overall receiver, but you have no running backs.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't do you any good.
So wait, what's the name of like a nice handbag?
I don't know. My wife shows
like
them to me all the
Gucci?
time.
Like a Gucci bag?
Sure.
Is this like going to the street vendor around the corner and getting a quote unquote Gucci bag?
Like when we went to Washington, D.C.
You're right.
So when we went to Washington, D.C., there were Oakleys and then there were Folkleys, which are fake Oakleys. And we all got Folkleys. I look at this as like Mountain Dew versus Mountain Lightning. You know, that kind of thing, but
I don't even think it's that bad. I feel like it's more of like, here's a double scoop ice cream cone compared to a 1 scoop ice cream cone. Like you're still getting a delicious ice cream cone. Just this one's got a little bit more ice cream.
Okay.
Because they're both good. Like we're not like
they're still good.
Again, you're talking about like this player's like trash almost, or like,
unless you like Mountain Lightning.
Did you like your Folkleys?
Maybe
did you feel good?
I thought I looked good in Folkleys.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and no one knew the difference.
I don't wear glasses.
All right, so I wore them on the ball diamond. I had them on my hat brim.
Yep.
Like I felt like a baller.
And you only had to pay how much for them?
I paid like $6.
$12. Yeah, $6.
Yeah, exactly. Well, inflation,
So
Folkleys.
I think the Folkleys. I think that one plays.
The Folkley wins.
Yeah, I think so.
I know that's such like you're talking like a massive discount though. That's a massive discount. These are like slight discounts.
I mean,
actually I don't know because I don't know what your guys' players are, but like mine, The way I'm looking at it, mine are just like
tiny. I mean, you can do it however you want.
Ice cream cone is
No, mine are actually both just like a tier down.
Yeah,
it's not. It's
like
crazy.
the tear down show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you buy like name brand sugar at the store, and then you'd go to Aldi and just buy the Aldi sugar. Tastes exactly the same. It was just cheaper.
Well, sugar.
Exactly. Why are you paying more for it?
I people ask me about floors. They'll be like, "Hey, what's the difference between this oak and that oak?" And I'm like,
"The price.
It's the finish. Well, it's really just the finish that you're paying for." I'm like, "It's just oak. It's like still the same tree."
Yeah.
Like Brazilian cherries, Brazilian cherry, Brazilian teaks, Brazilian teak. It doesn't matter where you get it. It's just a tree. So yeah, along those lines.
Okay.
So we explained this to death now.
Now that we've explained it,
who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
All right. So my first tier down is gonna be
refuses to say off brand. It's fine. It's whatever.
I'm gonna call mine my bargain basement.
Minor focus
is the guy I'm giving up. I'd be willing to give up for this kind of package.
Okay.
Is AJ Brown.
Okay.
Now we all know I want to shoot high here
AJ
first.
Brown's a stud.
AJ Brown's an absolute stud. Wide receiver 4 overall. His 18.1 points per game were 6th best. Turns 27 in June, so he's still got a couple more years of prime production there.
Absolutely.
157 targets, 105 receptions, 1,447 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So, love AJ Brown. Think he's that tier 2 receiver, which totally happened with. Maybe tier 3, depends how you want to tier him up. You know, if you put Justin Jefferson by himself, which I would do, and then CeeDee Lamb, Amon, and Jamar, I'd have AJ Brown in that next tier of receivers. But in almost close to that tier is the player I'm thinking of here is Michael Pittman Jr.
Okay.
For Indianapolis Colts, who ended up being wide receiver 13, which from 4 to 13, you think it's a big difference, but on a points per game basis, you're talking, less than 2 points, almost 2 points. So 18.1 to 16.2. So Michael Pittman's still above that threshold of 16, like right around 16 points is like usually like a wide receiver 1, right? So like he's giving you wide receiver 1 production nonetheless. He also turns 27 this year as well.
The same age.
Where AJ Brown had 157 targets, Michael Pittman had 150. AJ Brown had 105 receptions, Michael Pittman 104. The yards and the touchdowns were where the difference was. He had 300 more yards than Michael Pittman and 3 more touchdowns for him. But Michael Pittman Jr., I mean, he's the focal point of that Colts offense. He led the team in receptions. He had 109, which was 5th best in the entire league. Led him in receiving yards, led him in touchdown receptions. So for me, this is a player that is not only productive, the guy going to be the go-to guy for Anthony Richardson when he comes back. Because do they sign a guy in free agency? Do they draft a guy? Most likely, they probably draft another guy to pair up with Michael Pittman. But Michael Pittman's a free agent this year. So either he's getting franchise tagged or he's getting a long deal because there's no way they let this guy walk. There's just absolutely no way.
They have the 4th most cap space. So I agree with you. I don't think they're going to let him go.
So this is a player that has had 4 different quarterbacks in all 4 years of his career. About to get a big-time deal and get locked in for their team. So for somebody to be funnel targets, he's the guy outside of like A.J. Brown who, he's got Dallas Goedert, he's got Davante Smith to mix with. I wouldn't mind tearing down to Michael Pittman Jr. and then my plus being, and I looked into this, like you can probably get Michael Pittman Jr. and Tajay Spears and probably a pick, maybe a second, but maybe it's just a third. But Michael Pittman, Spears, and let's call it a second. Let's aim high here for A.J. Brown. You probably get James Cook a second and Michael Pittman for A.J. Brown. You can probably get Michael Pittman Jr., David Montgomery, Joe Mixon, players in that tier. If you're in super flex leagues, you can take a gamble on Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Russ Wilson. I wouldn't want that turd. But those are quarterbacks you probably get with Michael Pittman for A.J. Brown to really take your team to another level.
I mean that's a huge thing for a superflex to be able to get any sort of quarterback and stay within a realm. You know what I mean? We're not in the same ballpark. It's a couple points less per game, but you're within that wide receiver 1 realm still.
Yeah, and be able to add a guy like Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, or possibly even Daniel Jones, if you still believe he's a starter. That's a move I'd make after the NFL draft, of course. But these are the moves that can take your team to that next level, right? Like sometimes it's easy to get hung up on having that superstar team player on your team, but you're not winning titles, right? Like you're barely squeaking in the playoffs, or you're missing the playoffs, but when you find yourself getting to the playoffs, you're getting rolled because you're so focused. And it's easy to do this in Dynasty. It's like we talked about this so many times in the show, Garrett, where like you have this best player and like, oh, I need to build around this team. When in reality, sometimes that's a player you got to get rid of to like turn the corner. Like you need to figure out a way to get those total points up. And these are the kind of moves that I envision that we're going to talk about here throughout the entire show that I'd be willing to make my team better. Now, if you have A.J. Brown and a stud, you're not making a move like this. These are for teams that are like close, that can't get past that first round, can't get to the title game.
We're playing really deep leagues. You know, some of you guys play where you're starting 7 spots and a kicker and a defense, and that's it. Well, there, you don't really need to tear down. You need superstars. But most of us are playing in leagues where we're starting 9, 10, 11 guys. Yeah. It can be tough to be able to field a good starting lineup, especially come bye weeks and injuries and all that kind of stuff. And so that's where this can really make a difference. And I'm with you on this one. Even though I am a big A.J. Brown guy, I remember Matt and I we were talking about him when he came out. We were excited about him. You know, we're also excited about Hakeem Butler, and that didn't work out. But that being said,
how dare you?
What a tight end that guy made.
But so I'm a big A.J. Brown guy, but it's a guy that, and even the numbers I'm looking at are even slightly better in Pittman's favor. I only have it about 1.4 point difference this past year, 17 points per game for A.J. Brown and 15.6. So
you go through week 8. I went through week 17 and then go to 8.
Oh, okay. I always do the full season because the players don't care that we're not doing it anymore. So but that could be the difference there.
They both had a rough game that last game too. I think Pittman only scored like 7 points. AJ Brown didn't really do anything.
Yeah, he only had 7. AJ Brown had -0.1.
That was the game that he got injured, I think.
Yeah. So same thing. A lot of times they pull players. So for me, when I'm looking at like real stats, I want to look weeks 1 through 17.
Sure.
Because they could be playing a defense that just didn't play at all. They could be.
It is tough to know, but either way.
But yeah, either way.
The gap between them I don't think is huge, and I do think the return that you're going to get, because AJ Brown's the name.
Yep.
You know, and for most of the season, he was right up there with Tyreek Hill. He didn't finish the season strong, but what most people are going to remember is, man, him and Tyreek Hill were battling it out all year, when in fact CeeDee Lamb ended up being the wide receiver 1. But it's because neither one of those
top players overall in fantasy, which was nuts.
And it's not like to kind of further expunge or expand on your point there, Indy is very it's just a low-key type of place compared to the high-profile Philadelphia Eagles, which are everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't hear that much about Michael Pittman Jr. And it's not because he's a bad player. It's just because kind of that offense kind of, you know, they lost their superstar quarterback early, and they kind of just faded into the background.
And I think that's a great point, too, because some people might be saying, well, yeah, he finished as wide receiver 13 on the season, which is great, but they're going to be switching quarterbacks. It's basically Gardner Minshew all year. Don't worry about that. Michael Pittman did just fine with Anthony Richardson in those first three games there where they were together, 23.7, 13.6, 16.7. So he was just fine with Anthony Richardson. In fact, on a points per game basis, he was slightly better with Anthony Richardson there. So you don't have anything to worry about.
True.
Glad I have you guys supporting this.
That's right. We're all in this together.
All right. So my bargain basement alternative.
Tearing down.
Off-brand player. Who we got?
I'm searching through the bin. I'm trying to find my bargains.
You're crying.
So the guy, you know, obviously the grade A guy or the guy that, you know,
the name brand.
The name brand guy.
Yeah. That sounds like Davante Chan or something.
That I'm going with here is Puka Nacua. Obviously burst onto the scene. Has been going nuts all year. He finished his rookie season as wide receiver 4, averaging 17.6 points per game. Only 22 years old. He's going ADP wise right after the first round, right around 15. So he's going really, really early. You know, last year he had 160 targets, 105 receptions, 1,486 yards, and six touchdowns. And he played all 17 games, which, you know, some of those he was a little dinged up for, but he fought through.
He was out there.
Yeah, he fought through, which is great. And the bargain that I'm finding out there, the guy that I'm scrounging around the bin for, is Nico Collins. this is another guy who's relatively young, only 24 years old. Finished last year wide receiver 12, so he was right there on the cusp of the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 numbers. What gets me is, he missed a couple of games, and he was still able to maintain that. So, on top of everything else, he was still able to do, even though he missed a couple of games. And when you look and you dig into the points per game, it's 17.6 for Puka, all his notoriety, all this craziness. It's 17.4 for Nico Collins. It is 0.2 points difference. And obviously, when you look at Puka, everyone loves that he got 160 targets. That's great. Nico Collins did it on 109. He had 109, 80 receptions, 1,297 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So he had a couple more touchdowns, in 2 less games. And the fact that he is tied to a quarterback who's coming off a Rookie of the Year campaign, and he's going to be with him for a long time, is another, I think, added bonus for me.
And he's only a tier down, so it's like
which Puka Nacua is clearly. I mean, obviously he's
a tier up.
He's a tier up, but he's also attached to a much older quarterback, and who knows what that situation is going to look like for Puka in a couple of years. So obviously the one downside is the fact that Nico Collins is going into the last year of his deal. And we're not 100% sure whether or not he's going to re-sign or not. This is the time when they can re-sign him after 3 years. They're allowed to kind of start negotiating these contracts, and they have the 5th most cap space in the league. They have around $65 million. This is the time when you have these young quarterbacks that you sign these type of players, right? And it's not like Nico Collins went berserk. He had around 1,300 yards. So I don't think you're going to be up in that $25 million a year.
Like $18 million probably gets it done.
Right. So you're still getting, a little bit of a discount on a guy, Nico Collins, who has room to grow, and you're locking him up before the quarterback payments balloon out.
He was like a 3rd round pick, right?
He was. Yeah. So this will be a nice little uptick for him. And when you look in the trade calculator, that's where it starts getting bonkers, right? So I looked into the Puka Nacua first, and in Superflex, there's a Superflex trade that Puka went straight up for AJ Brown, which
expensive.
So right there, you're setting the bar. You're at
two name brand players right next to each other.
You're at 2+ first round picks, right? I mean, can we both agree that AJ Brown is above the 2 first round or right around?
I would definitely rather have him over Puka.
Yeah. So and other ones that I'm digging into, Puka and a 24 third for 21 firsts, and Hunter Renfrow was just a throw in, but
sure.
he was in the deal, so I'm gonna
one of those picks is probably high.
Yeah, exactly. So but already off the bat, he's already above 2 first round draft picks.
You probably get Nico in a first then.
And yeah, so when I went to Nico, it was Nico for a 21 first and Israel Abanikanda. I mean, that's the difference in value. You're basically
about that guy.
You're basically getting getting Nico for a first when Puka is 2 firsts, and these guys are 0.2 points difference on a points per game basis. And really, I mean,
Nico's younger.
Nico's 24.
Oh, I
Puka's
went back
20.
to AJ Brown. Never mind.
But you also have that long term like Puka's long term commitment to quarterback and coach. You don't know.
Right.
And the fair as of today, we don't know about Nico, but we probably feel pretty good about him.
I feel pretty good just knowing the situation, and that will clear itself up in the next. I would say in this offseason, they'll probably work out a deal if they're going to do it. So I mean, I would think now might be the time to do that, because if he gets locked up long term, his value might go up a little bit, and you might have to pay a little bit more for him.
Yeah, once you get that locked into Stroud for it's a 5-year deal with $60 million guaranteed, $18 million a year, something like that.
All of a sudden, it's a first and something else. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I don't hate that either, actually. With Nico, I know Tank Dell's gonna come in. He's gonna produce at a high level, but those are their 2 receivers. We got to see if Dalton Schultz comes back. If they draft a receiver, a tight end, what they do throughout the draft, they could probably do a lot of other things than receiver. Yeah. I think they're pretty good there at receiver, and Will Anderson's pretty stout too.
True statement.
That defense, I could probably start building that defense up for the head coach, D'Amico Ryans, who is a defensive coordinator. So I like that trade as well.
Yeah. No, we're 3 for 3 on it. I'm a big Nico guy. My lack of love for Puka has been well documented on this show. I do think he's a product of the system more than
160 targets.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Jeez.
We've seen it out of a lot of fine receivers, good receivers that put up elite numbers because of the system. So it's always hard to know how much is them, how much is the rest of the system around them.
But for that, and that's the kind of price tag where, like, again, when there's a lot of, like, okay, what Matt said, like, 160 targets, a rookie, no long-term, like, certainty here. Like, those are players that, and then you drafted them in the 3rd round of your rookie draft, 4th round of your rookie draft. Those are players I love to get out from under. Like, just because,
just play
like,
it more safe.
Where some people will sit here and be like, oh, but I got him for so cheap. But he's also, like, way more fragile than, like, if you get an A.J. Brown. Like, like, even if you don't want to go Nico Collins, if you want to tear up here, like, you want to watch me give an emotional speech and you want to tear up a little bit, you know, to go get A.J. Brown. Now, he did it straight up, but, like, that's the kind of move where, like, hey, I'll give you A.J. Brown, Puka my second. You know, like 2 seconds for A.J. Brown.
Well,
or,
apparently you can do it straight up, according to the GM.
That's crazy.
If I can get into Amon-Ra St. Brown talks with Puka, that's the kind of player that opens the gate for those kind of players. Like, hell, if I give you Puka in my first for Amon-Ra St. Brown,
and I was
give it to me.
I was only skimming off the top, like of the trade finder. I didn't want to go into the season and all that. Because crazy things can happen right there at the end of the season when people are trying to win championships. So I did, after all that stuff was over, I only did like
past few weeks.
Yeah, January type of stuff. And
I'll say, gonna hire you as my doorman if you're skimming off the top. Been there, done that.
All right. Well, my name brand player is.
So I just teared up. He's about to tear down.
That's right. My name brand player here.
give me them Folkleys first.
Yeah.
I'll put them on.
Give me the Oakleys first.
Yeah, you got it. This is the Oakley. We're not to the Folkleys yet.
Yes.
Turn down here. Let's see how far.
This is gonna be the one where I could see somebody just taking a snippet of this and being like, Garrett is such an idiot. But it's Patrick Mahomes.
You are
He's
such
so
an idiot. Dude.
Such an idiot. Right?
Yes.
My Oakleys guy
How dare you?
is Patrick Mahomes. My Folkleys guy.
Yeah. I mean, if it's Patrick Mahomes, we should go auto insurance, right?
Fair.
All right, so
Fair. State Farm.
State
kind of
Farm,
coverage are we getting here?
State Farm versus
Mahomes and my auto.
the General.
I feel like no matter what he says, when you say Mahomes, like it's going to be the general.
The General.
Well, and that's the hard part. Anytime you say Patrick Mahomes, any other player just seems like, no, you shouldn't do that.
Well, unless it's like, see, for me, because everybody tells me I'm an idiot, like Justin Herbert plus.
Sure.
But I want to hear your guys. I feel like this is.
And then let me hear my rationale. You got to hear the rationale, though.
No, I don't.
No, you do. You have to
No,
listen.
first I react, and then you call me down.
Okay. All right. It's Dak Prescott.
Unbelievable. I knew it was the general. Where's Shaquille O'Neal? Unbelievable. I would never make that trade.
No, you shouldn't. You should not make that trade straight up. You should not.
I'm tearing down, literally.
Rich is reacting just like the people you thought.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's why
I'm currently tweeting Garrett's an idiot.
this could be such a valuable trade. So here's the thing. Over the past 5 years, 3 of those 5 years, Dak Prescott has actually outscored on a points per game basis, outscored Patrick Mahomes.
The greatest quarterback
3
of
of the
all time.
past 5 years. During that time, the difference in total points per game, because Patrick Mahomes, a couple of those seasons just balled out, had awesome seasons. Total, it's 1.4 points difference. Dak Prescott's averaging 21 points per game over the past 5 years, whereas Patrick Mahomes, 22.4. So 1.4 point difference over the past 5 years. That alone, I don't think people would believe you if you had told them there was only not even a 1.5 point difference between the two of those.
Yeah,
guys
that's the
over
last
past
5 years.
Yeah, this year, he was better.
I know, but going forward.
Going forward, he has not as good of passing weapons, and his best one is getting older and worse.
Who?
Travis Kelce.
Oh, see Rasheed Rice?
All that to be said, the other thing that I think is really interesting here is
To be fair, everyone's getting older.
everyone is always getting older.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm older now than when we started this conversation.
That is not inaccurate.
All
I
these
feel like
tears
the
are coming out my
perceived
body.
age gap between these two guys is
2 years.
way bigger than it actually is. So I've been thinking of Dak Prescott in the same range as Kirk Cousins and
No, he's only
those
30.
guys. That's right. There's only a 2-year difference between these guys.
That's a long time.
It's not a long time.
24 months.
There's only 2 years difference between these guys. And if I told you today that a trade that I probably wouldn't even do would actually make your team better because I think you can get even more.
It's 104 weeks, by the way.
Whew, that's some quick math.
That's a
Even
lot
on
of
leap
time.
years?
Like, I feel like the football season's only 8 months, or what's it? It's like 6 months away, right?
Something like that.
Who knows?
It just ended Sunday.
It just did.
Feels like
All of that
infinity
to
away.
be
It'll be back. Preseason will be back in August. Yep.
So if you were right now able to just do, and like I said, I would want more than this if I had Patrick Mahomes.
I probably will too.
If you were to just do Dak Prescott and DJ Moore, would that be enough for Patrick Mahomes?
No.
No, it wouldn't be enough, would it? However, you would actually be a slight improvement on your team just from that alone. If you take the average top four, so I did the average of the top 4 receivers. So wide receiver 4s, wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 1s. Didn't do everybody else. Top 48 receivers in football last year. The average guy, because you're going to start 3 receivers and 1 flex typically, right? So your average starting receiver, they're going to average about 14 points per game. DJ Moore, average 16.9.
Yeah.
2.9 more points per game. The difference between Dak Prescott and Patrick Mahomes historically, 1.4. So just getting those 2 players will already actually make your team better than it was before.
And that's if you're averaging all the way across the board. But if you're really replacing a third guy with DJ Moore, you're probably gaining more.
You're probably gaining even more than that. Absolutely. And like I said, I wouldn't even do that deal. I would want more. And I can almost guarantee you will get more. But that alone is probably worth it just when you look at the total value of your team. So if you can go out there and get DJ Moore and Nico Collins, add them to your team with Dak Prescott, you will be much better long-term for it. So name brand player, Patrick Mahomes. The off-brand guy, the Folkleys, Dak Prescott.
Dear Twitter, Garret is an idiot. I should really just send this out. People won't even know what it is.
Just see what they.
I'm doing it. Hold on.
Dear Twitter.
Dear, Twitter.
I think that's not how you do it.
No,
Oh.
no. The comma goes after Twitter.
It's
But I love that you're
Twitter,
calling me an
comma.
idiot with the grammatical.
I know I'm an
incorrect.
idiot. No, I'm just glad I have somebody to hang out with. Dear Twitter, at
Dear
Price,
comma Twitter.
Dear.
at Dynasty,
Twitter.
Garret. What was it? Wait, what was it? Garret 567874.
It was 33. It was underscore 33.
Dear Twitter, Dynasty Price is an idiot. Send. That's so mean. It's so uncalled for. But yeah, I would need.
What did Garrett do? Oh my gosh! But how can you argue with the math of it?
Listen, math is absolute,
Right?
but we're not doing math. We're playing Dynasty Fantasy Football.
It's
And
math. It's basically spreadsheets fancied up.
Mahomes' receiving core is gonna get better.
Is it?
He's the greatest. He's the greatest.
Travis Kelce's getting worse.
They're gonna take a quarterback, wide receiver in the first.
They're gonna
round
take a
this year.
quarterback. That won't help.
He's the greatest quarterback of all time.
I agree with that.
He is so safe for the next 7 years of being a high-end quarterback one. Just high.
Absolutely. Top
We're
5
like-
guy.
Like Dak,
Every
I
year.
feel like Dak, we got like 3 more years of.
Well, we'll
Which
see
is-
what this extension is. They're about to sign him to one.
Are they?
Mhm.
I don't know. And you're right. All the numbers are there. I would want Justin Herbert.
Okay, you can go after
I
Justin
get it.
Herbert. That's
Same
fine.
tier. I get what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
It's just a player.
the
you dubbed out
perceived
there.
value of a Dak Prescott is even lower, but the points are always and that's why you go after off-brand players. That's why you go after because they're not as sexy, and Twitter's not going to like it.
When you
But at
tear
the
down.
end of the day, it's about the numbers.
When you tear down a little
When
bit.
you tear down and get the off-brand guy, then you
Taking that dumpster.
it's and you dig in that dumpster.
Bargain hunting, guys.
That's so that's the thing, because honestly, you could get Patrick Mahomes, or for Patrick Mahomes. I truly believe, and I'm looking at some trades here. So here's
Like,
one.
He's shopping at Oakley. We're at TJ Maxx.
Here's one right
I
here.
was going to say this is kind of like
Max
when
for the
you,
minimum?
when you go to TJ Maxx and you find that name brand
the same
shirt,
item you
and
bought.
you're just like, oh my god, this is only $12.99.
Exactly.
It should have been 42.
The TJ Maxx episode. I'm fine with that.
I'll be the guy who goes there and be like, oh, man, this is $12.99. I just spent $69.99.
Rich, here's the perfect example because it involves your guy, Justin Herbert. So this just shows you the value of Patrick Mahomes.
Again,
Patrick
I really
Mahomes,
don't think you're an idiot. And this is just, it's a good argument. I'm just saying this all in jest, by the way. But go on.
Patrick Mahomes,
Yes.
Mostert, and a fourth. So really, Patrick
Pat
Mahomes.
Mahomes.
You get Justin Herbert, Jayden Reed, a first, Jake Ferguson, and a third.
Oh, yeah. Herbert side all day.
See, that's the thing. The value of the name of Patrick Mahomes, even though he's incredible, is worth so much that you can get very good players just a little bit down that are not going to be as sexy in your lineup, but are going to score you close to, or like last year, Dak Prescott outscored Patrick Mahomes.
And the point is, all the other fill-in pieces are going to boost your overall score because they're going to be better than what you have on your bench or as your fourth wide receiver in your flex or your third wide receiver in your flex.
Yep.
All of that.
Exactly.
Dude, love that deal. I would take Justin Herbert and probably a first if it was like top 6.
Yeah,
honestly.
and then you get Jake Ferguson and Jayden Reed thrown on top.
Unless I'm in a league with you where I have Pat Mahomes, I need more.
I want more.
The greatest downfall of doing a Dynasty podcast ever listens to. Never make 8 trades.
The startup leagues with people that listen to the show are so tough because Tajay Spears always goes right before I can take him.
You get sniped
Cole Kmet always goes right before I take him.
Yep.
The time. All of the time. And then people are calling out your draft picks, like, Rich is about to take this player. And you're like, yeah, I am.
Hey, that's exactly right.
So,
Guys, I got to tell you about my friends at UnderDog Fantasy. Right now, they have the pre-NFL Draft 2024 Best Ball is live on UnderDog. Draft your favorite rookie sleepers you've discovered in the Dynasty Nerds film room. Play in $3 contests all the way up to $1,000 contests. Draft your team and never worry about setting a lineup. You need to get in on this action ASAP. Sign up at UnderDog with the promo code NERDS. And UnderDog will double your first deposit up to $100 for new members only. And yes, Dynasty Nerds is still giving new users a free Nerd Herd and Dynasty GM annual bundle membership with your deposit of $10 or more at UnderDog by using that promo code NERDS. So you get all our tools, all access to the Nerd Herd by putting a $10 deposit down in there. Your Dynasty Nerds promo code will be sent by email within 48 hours of sign up. New members only. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where UnderDog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-HOPE-NEW YORK. In Tennessee, 1-800-889-9789.
all right, well, I'm on the clock here next with my tear down, which is going to involve somebody you just mentioned. Ooh. So I'm looking to get rid of DK Metcalf.
Okay.
And DK Metcalf, turns 27 in December. He was wide receiver 19 this year, averaged 14.9 points per game, had 114 targets, 65 receptions for 1,104 yards. And I am targeting Jayden Reed of the Green Bay Packers, who finishes wide receiver 28 and averaged 13.5 points per game. So their points per game isn't really too different there. I know Jayden Reed was wide receiver 28. DK Metcalf was wide receiver 19. But their points per game difference was just a little over a point per game, where Jayden Reed had 90 targets, 60 receptions, 8 touchdowns. But he also had 11 rushes for 119 yards, averaged 10.8 yards per carry. This was a player that the Green Bay Packers were trying to get involved in the game. They want to get the ball in his hands. And what really took off about Jayden Reed, and I've said this about Jayden Reed on the show halfway through the season, I was like, Jayden Reed's probably going to be one of my top buys this offseason. He's just a player I loved what I've seen out of that second half of the year. Because when you look back at Jayden Reed from weeks 10 through 17, so the second half of the year, he was wide receiver 10 overall. He averaged 17.7 points per game. And we remember the second half of the year where Jordan Love took a big step forward. And what we remember about that is like a lot more other players were involved at that point. Like Romeo Doubs was getting more involved in there. Dontavian Wicks was getting more involved. Aaron Jones had really stepped up there. But Reed was the number one option in that offense. They were manufacturing touches for him. And DK Metcalf on the other side, he's just somebody that he's a real solid receiver, right? Like this is no diss to DK Metcalf at all. But he's somebody going back, when you look back, he hasn't produced at a high level since 2020. When he caught 83 balls for 1,300 yards, 3 yards, he had those double-digit touchdowns with 10. And he had 17 fantasy points on average. But if you look over to since 2020, since then, he's averaging 14, 13, 14 points per game. This year he averaged 14.9. So when I get 4 years straight of a player, essentially, just about averaging 14 points per game, that tells me that's the median. That's more of the player than, maybe I'll have another big year where he averages 17 points per game, but he's a wide receiver too.
Well, and the odds of that seem to be diminishing a little bit with,
Jackson Smith and Jigba.
He's
going to take Tyler Lockett.
Should be more involved, but at least has the skill set of a number one receiver. We don't know that he necessarily will be. And anytime that there's turmoil as far as like coaching change and all that stuff, like you just never know. There's more things up in the air.
Yeah, and you bring in a defensive coach in there too. Well, maybe they'll run the ball more. They have two good running backs there.
It's tough to run it more than Pete Carroll.
Now, yeah, and the guy they brought in from they just officially made it official that made it official that they're hiring Ryan Grubb. That's what I was just looking at. Okay. They got the OC from Washington.
Okay.
So from a name value, you would think tearing down here would be like, oh, what's the big get? What I've done in my research is there's not really, from the public's perspective, there's not a huge drop off in the tier here between Jayden Reed and DK Metcalf. Probably me pimping up Jayden Reed all year has probably really boosted his value in the industry. So I'll take full credit for that.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with this skill at all.
No, nope. It's more of Rich Dotson and I are talking about.
The Rich effect.
My voice goes a long way. Yeah, it annoys a lot of people. So, but still, DK Metcalf still holds that youth enough, and not euthanasia, youth enough, and that value where you could probably get Jayden Reed. I would take Jayden Reed pretty close to straight up, me personally, for DK Metcalf. But in most leagues, in a vacuum, you could probably get like a slight upgrade of like Jayden Reed and Aaron Jones, Jayden Reed and Michael Mayer. Maybe a couple of those quarterbacks I mentioned before, like Baker Mayfield, probably not Kirk Cousins, but like, Daniel Jones.
Around a second pick value. Is that what
somewhere
you're
around
saying?
there. You could probably get another teammate like Luke Musgrave, maybe a Quentin Johnson, a Michael Mayer, somewhere on those terms. But like a player in that category that has something, like I'd be chasing, even though Quentin Johnson, I don't believe long term, like there's some upside there. But like if I need running back help, like Aaron Jones might be able to help me for 1 year. A Luke Musgrave, who at tight end, that could offer some really good upside. A Michael Mayer or a quarterback. I'm willing to tear down the Jayden Reed and just get anything like if it's a second round pick, I'll take the second round pick or equivalent value of a player worth a second round pick. But I really like what I saw. I like getting younger here. He's going to turn 24. He is a little bit older for a rookie, so he'll be turning 24 here in April. But still, you're going to gain almost 3.5 years of dynasty age value. And honestly, if you're talking upside, if he can continue where he left off the second half of the game, you're actually talking about 2 to 3 points per game difference. So you're actually getting a better overall player here if the trend continues of where each player has produced. Metcalf over the last 4 years and Jayden Reed over the second half of the season.
Yeah, and I think the major point for me is, Seattle, there's a little bit of uncertainty, just not knowing exactly what we're going to get out of the new offensive coordinator. We don't know exactly who's going to be the quarterback 2 years from now. I don't think, that
Michael
decision.
Penix.
Yeah, that decision has yet to be made. So, in Green Bay, there's a lot of stability. We know exactly who's going to be throwing him the ball. We know exactly who's going to be coaching him. All that stuff's. We know what to expect, and I think Jayden Reed is just going to grow and become a better player in year 2. Whereas in DK Metcalf, I think we know what he is. You know what I mean? And there's not much room for him to grow and become better than he already is. So. I like the Jayden Reed pick. I think it's a great way to add value, is to pass on a guy like DK Metcalf, who kind of has, we know what he is, limited upside for a guy that's untapped and kind of the sky's the limit for a guy
what's
like
the point of having a keg if you're not going to tap it?
Yeah, exactly.
For what it's worth, according to Nerds ADP, Jayden Reed right now is going off the board roughly at pick 66, whereas DK Metcalf is going off the board roughly at pick 54. So you're getting about a round of value. And that's about right, what you were saying with the second. That's close. Probably what it would take to move up a round or down a round. Yeah. And you might even get a hair more than that, but that's probably what it would be right around there.
Nice.
Okay. So my next bargain basement bin type of scenario is...
Before you, real quick, because in case you missed last week's show, you have ADP. ADP is, I just want to remind everybody, ADP is on DynastyNerds.com. We have we update it constantly now. We're running mock drafts all the time. Currently, it's just in the rankings set in. So it's next to the player's name. Pretty soon, like very soon, you'll be able to sort directly to ADP of its own landing page.
The good news is you can't sort it on there, but there isn't the ability to download it. So if you want to download it and sort, like that's what I did right here. I downloaded it all and I sorted it myself.
I can't read.
So you know I don't speak Spanish.
Sorry, man. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I want to remind the audience.
No worries,
ADP is
man.
on Dynasty Nerds.
All right, so my non-off-brand guy, my non-bargain basement guy, my tier-up
pricey
guys, my real-ass Oakleys, is Sam LaPorta.
Ooh.
Obviously a huge name, another big-time rookie.
I got to get back on Twitter. Dear Twitter.
Matt's an idiot.
23 years old.
Dear, Twitter.
Just ridiculous. Obviously finished as tight end number 1 on the season. Average 14.1 points per game. Are you telling me? Are you telling Twitter that I'm an idiot, Rich?
No, I'm just looking at all the people replying to me telling Garrett's an idiot.
It's probably going to be your most liked tweet of the year.
Alexa put a kill Kenny
God.
response there, so I love that automatically. All right, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt it.
All right, so
I might have to play you out here though.
120 targets, 86 receptions, 889 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Whew, very good player.
Very good. I watched him play all year.
Coming off the board in Superflex tight end premium around 26, 27 maybe. So right there after the turn of the second round into the third round, but right there at the top, and probably just likely to climb even higher. But my bargain basement guy is going to be Trey McBride. So I don't think I'm that far off. I think Trey McBride also gained a lot of steam. But when you just look at the numbers,
I'm deleted.
tight end 7 on the year, average 10.7 points per game. So there's quite a big difference between 14 points and 10.7. And really 10.7 kind of puts you in a murky area when you're a tight end with a lot of other guys, right? But when you dig into the numbers, obviously there's a little story behind that. Trey McBride didn't even start and become relevant until after week 4. So if you take week 5 till the end of the year, the numbers look a lot different and a lot better for Trey McBride. So in that time, he had 99 targets, 75 yards, 75 receptions, 763 yards, and 3 touchdowns. In that same time period, Sam LaPorta had 93 targets, 64 receptions, 647 yards, and 9 touchdowns. So he really outstripped him in everything except for touchdowns. Trey McBride did from weeks 5 till the end of the season.
I went from week 7 to week 18, and the difference was only 0.4 points per game, 14.5 to 14.1.
So I just wanted to strictly go when he started. I mean, you could cherry pick and do whatever that you want from a lot of.
That's how I do it.
I know, but I wanted to at least say, hey,
I'm not an idiot.
This is when Trey McBride started being the guy.
Yeah.
Till the end of the season, and just go kind of point from point
to be fair,
from that point.
Trey McBride only scored 1.5 points in week 4.
But I think he was the starter. No, I mean I did week 5 till the end of the season.
Oh, got
it. It was after week 4.
Okay.
So anyway, I lost my complete train of thought because Rich just wants to interrupt people, but
it's a spiritual gift.
Yeah,
I'm an idiot.
No, this is a guy I couldn't find any good trades or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Both these guys, the trades that they were involved in were very convoluted. There was a lot of stuff on both sides. It just doesn't make for good show material. But if you look at the ADP, I said 26, right around 27 for LaPorta.
Mm-hmm.
It's 40, almost 41 for a guy like Trey McBride. So you really are able to maybe
a little over a round of value.
You get a round of value, which is around a second round draft pick. We already established that.
Maybe even more because of how high it is.
For high the rounds, it's probably a first round pick.
Right. And so that alone is worth it. But just the player that you could pick if you were in a startup and you passed on a guy like LaPorta, you could get a very decent player right there at the beginning of round 3, and then come back at mid round 4 or whatever, and get Trey McBride.
I'm trying to think if I would do that. If I had Sam LaPorta in tight end premium league and somebody's like, hey, I'll give you Trey McBride and a first. I'm trying to think if I would say yes. Because my gut's like, oh, that's really good value. I would do that.
Yep.
But oh man, I'm giving up the number 1 guy.
It was I think he had 13 points per game during that span versus what LaPorta had. So
I guess it'd be like, oh, somebody offered you like
you're giving up about a point per game. That's about it.
AJ Brown and a first for Justin Jefferson. It's probably like the comparison there.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I mean, LaPorta did it a lot on touchdowns, 9 touchdowns compared to 3.
So for what it's worth, if we were going to go with that example of, hey, you're in a startup here, the player that you could get instead. So I think this would be, these guys have almost identical ADPs, same position. So I think this would be a useful exercise. Would you rather have Sam LaPorta and Jonathan Taylor? So he's the one going at roughly around 40.
Yeah.
Or would you rather have Trey McBride and Jahmyr Gibbs? Jahmyr Gibbs is going at roughly pick 25.
Okay.
So who would you rather have?
That's a tough one.
That is really tough. Probably Jonathan Taylor and Sam LaPorta.
Really?
But like it's really close.
I could go either way.
Either
on that
way.
one.
It's
I
really
could go
close.
either way also on that. And so that's going to be personal preference, right?
Yeah. I might lean the Gibbs and McBride side.
Is there like another wide receiver or something that would be going that?
Yeah, we could
You
look
know what I
at some wide receivers in that same
Except
range.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
That might flip the script there a little bit.
So almost at that right exact same spot, 25.67 Tyreek Hill is right in that spot.
Anybody younger?
But that's the hard part is age-wise, there's nobody else. The next one's 22 or 30, so there's nobody else in that good range.
So it's like Jonathan Taylor.
So that was probably the best one. So if you wanted to stick with wide receiver, you could trade up a few spots and get Puka, or trade down a couple spots and get Olave.
Yeah.
But
you could pass on Puka and and get Nico. I mean,
but
All
then in
this
the
murky
40s,
water makes you feel like somebody just pooped in a pool, and I kind of lean now towards the Gibbs side.
but then in the 40s, you got Michael Pittman Jr., Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, those guys.
yeah.
Oh, those are pretty good guys.
Yeah. So you can get some good guys. All right.
I am the biggest DJ Moore fan of. I love him so much.
Pretty great.
He's so great. I wish I had more shares of him.
So
Somebody just went with Trey Block. I'm like,
maybe in this instance it would be, hey, if you're in that 27 range, maybe slide back in and see if you can get 2 guys in that 40 range, right?
Right.
2 for the price of 1.
Yeah. Then you'd really be in the money.
Micro machines.
Micro machine.
I do tend to really like to build my teams from rounds like 3 through 6, 7. I love to have lots of picks in. Like I'll trade out completely the first 2 rounds.
Oh, for sure. There's
To
great value
build
there.
in that rounds like
You get like pick
4
3
through
and 4.
7, 3 through 7. Yeah.
That's a money move. Like, hey, I'll give you my first round pick. You give me your 3rd and 4th round pick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love
I have
doing
2 thirds, 2 fourths. So you get some really good
Because
players.
often those guys will jump into the 1st and 2nd round value. But anyway,
Who are your last 2 guys?
last 2 guys. So
Get me out of here.
I made a huge splash in my first one, and I was like, I can't double splash. Once you've splashed everybody once, you're just the jerk at the pool that nobody wants to hang out with anymore. So I had to like dive in gently.
Shamu
this
used to
time.
do it all the time. That dude would just splash and then come back out and splash.
Do it
Come
again.
on, man.
That's true. They did love him.
Everyone loves Shamu.
That's true. Everyone loves a fat guy in the pool that does that too. It's the same thing. Same thing. So I'm tearing down from Davante Adams. Dang it, I said tearing down instead of off brand. Dang it. The name brand guy, the Oakleys.
How it feels forced.
It does. I know. I'm sick to my stomach. I can't even finish the show. Davante Adams. Davante Adams is the name brand guy. Currently going to be, he just turned 31. So he'll turn 32 in like December. So he'll be 31 for most of the year.
I'll take whoever you're about to say.
Well, it feels like that really sweet pair of Jordans that you got when they were new
Back in
90s.
2012. Yeah. And you cut the grass in him. He's currently
green top.
I just bought my son a pair of, he wanted Ugg slippers or slides, whatever the hell these kids call them. I'm like, all right. Yeah. My wife buys them. Who knows how much they cost? It got guaranteed they're cheap. I go, hey, you said this thing for a week. Kids out there playing basketball in them.
Oh
They're all tore up on the side. I'm like, what are you doing?
What world do you live in?
Oh, I was so mad. I'm like, do you not respect all the work
No.
that I do for this family?
No. Do you know how many bargain basement name brand off brand tiers that I had to do for those?
I'm like, look at me. I'm tearing down right now. I'm
For
like, why don't you-
nothing.
I'm like, why don't I just give you $100 bill and you just rip it up, put it in your mouth, and spit it on me?
Basically.
He's like, oh, like when you talk, Dad? I'm like, exactly like that.
All right.
I would slap that boy.
So Davante Adams, roughly going off the board at pick 78. So a little bit, he's
down there. Yep.
He's going down, but there's still a guy that I like just as much, maybe more.
DJ Moore?
He's going later somehow. That's incredible.
No way, really?
No.
I would say that's insane.
Amari Cooper.
No.
Amari Cooper is going off the board at pick 96. So once again, we're getting, 1.5 to 2 rounds of value between these two guys. One, Davante Adams being 31 does not excite me. I don't love that. Amari Cooper is about a year and a half younger than Davante Adams is. Then you also have the situation with Oakland or Las Vegas, whichever one it is.
It's Vegas
I caught myself
nowadays.
as soon as I said it. With Las Vegas, where I don't know who their quarterback's going to be.
Hayden O'Connell, son.
Maybe he played fine. I'm whelmed.
I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo's a free
Jimmy
agent.
Garoppolo's still there. They could draft somebody. Who knows what it's going to be? But either way, as much as I'm still not on the Deshaun Watson bandwagon, I would much rather have Deshaun Watson throwing the football to a guy that's a year and a half younger than I would whatever the Raiders are going to put out there, throwing to a guy that's going to turn 32 during the season. So I would rather get the off-brand guy in Amari Cooper than I would in the name brand with Davante Adams.
So you'd like to go a tier down.
Tier and a half.
All right, that's fine. That's almost like you killed 1.5 people if you get a tattooed on you.
Luke Getsy, huh? That's who they went with?
Yeah.
For their offensive coordinator. Oof.
Don't know much about him.
He was the guy for Chicago.
Yep.
Oh. I know more.
Yeah, that's not awe-inspiring
It's
if
not.
you're a Raiders fan.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's a little underwhelming.
More like,
Yeah, I would rather.
Like,
Yeah, I'm okay with that too. You probably get like Amari Cooper in a second.
Probably.
I would just rather take Amari Cooper.
Honestly, I'm at the point where I might take him just straight up. I really
full
might.
stop.
I didn't have a great feeling about Davante Adams last year, and that feeling's not going to get any better. He's just getting older, and that situation sucks there. So.
Yeah, how many receivers come out at 32 and are like good?
Ball
Still.
Jerry Rice.
Larry Fitz. No, Larry Fitz wasn't even 32.
Is Keenan Allen 32 yet or
He's
no?
about to be. He's about to break the mold.
Yeah,
He's
he
up
is.
in that mold. Raheem Mostert.
Listen, Davante Adams is a fine player.
He is.
and
Very good.
He has been for a long time.
He has been for a long, long time. So I don't want to make it sound like the dude's trash, but I just don't have I don't like the way Las Vegas feels.
He was wide receiver 10 on the year.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty damn good.
Yeah, he's very good.
He's awesome, but at this point, when you factor the age and all the circumstances, I honestly might rather have Amari Cooper straight up. But if I can get the extra, of a 1.5 to 2 round difference, yeah.
If I was in a startup draft and they were both on the board, I'd probably take Adams.
it would be close,
But they're neck and neck.
right? So if you can get
Any kind of plus, yeah. Hey, any plus on
third
top,
round pick,
like
sure.
If
Two-thirds? Sure.
Here's a good way to look at it. If you have Adams, you're a contender.
Yeah.
So and you flip for Amari Cooper, you're a contender. So I'm targeting like the old running backs, right? Like, can I get an Aaron Jones? And if I had to throw in like a third, can I get Raheem Mostert on a long shot?
Sure.
Something along those lines. Any kind of another older player to kind of help me go with. At this point, like, who's to help me win? Who's going to add? Who's some good depth there?
And it's one of those scenarios where I don't want to be left holding the bag. I don't want to be left holding the bag with Davante Adams. I gain a 1.5 years with Amari Cooper. Then maybe I gain a 1.5 years next year, and I gain you just keep pushing that down the line and keep getting those kind of what I do at Superflex or in 1QB with quarterbacks often, where I just give me another 35-year-old, and when he turns 38, give me the next 35-year-old.
It's a savvy move in Dynasty. Like, if you don't mind older players that have 2 years, you can live in a competitive cycle of these 2-year windows of players. Like, and all you're doing is go up like second-round picks, third-round picks, first for like a package of something. Like an old player.
Travis
plus
Kelce
something on top.
last year.
Yeah, some of those lines. Like, again, I have teams that are contenders. I keep going draft. Like, I'm living in this window of like age and getting the youth where I can. But like, it's a way to play Dynasty. You know, like you can constantly compete if you don't want your draft picks and you strategically stay in that like moves it at, hey, I'll give you Davante Adams for this, and I'm just going to tear down just a little bit, but gain like 2 more years.
Yeah.
And then because when you're playing that level, like every year does count. Like you're you're really, it's like you're playing Jenga, right?
Yeah.
But you're just really good at it. Like
You do look really good at it with
You're
all
like-
those finger motions.
yeah, you're like, this,
Man.
you're like, oh, Davante Adams, Amari Cooper.
Magic trick.
Got it.
All right, 50 Cent. All right, well, that's it for this show. We'll be back next week talking more Dynasty Fantasy Football as we inch closer to the NFL Combine.
Not even next week. Tomorrow. Next episode. They get another episode.
I've been sick all week. I'm a little fuzzy in the brain. But we'll be back tomorrow talking more. What do we do? Oh, we're doing game show tomorrow.
We brought back the games.
So the game show's always been done throughout the year up to football season. We do probably 10 of them. Like throughout the year, we do a lot.
We do a lot.
Dude, Lycolometer is a thing.
Oh, it's back.
It's always been for the Nerd Herd Show. So tune in tomorrow for your first experience of our game show shows that we usually did for the Nerd Herd shows that we took away from them to give to you.
That's right. You're welcome.
Adios. I don't know what you want to say.